Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Background Information. Today we're going to be doing an aspect of veil culture, and I changed my mind on what it was actually going to be, and we're going to talk about the Bogeyman of the veil. Now what I'll do is I'll give you a quote from wherever this person or this thing is mentioned, and then we'll discuss it. So enjoy. That Taliesin. Well, they say the father was the creeping shadow deemed to do experiments upon all including his children, but that one, there's no end to his depraved mind or slick charm, and even outcast among the vampires, he is as powerful as ever, and no doubt behind all of this as he is all dysfunction in the veil. Quote from Conrad from Guard Dog. I had initially thought to talk about veil power structures this month, but I pushed that aside for someone else that, to me at least, is one of the most enjoyable characters to write and quite takes over everything he turns up in. It's not my intention, but he is just so perfectly hateful you can't help it. So I'm going to talk about the Bogeyman of the Veil, Taliesin Fillmore II, still called the Count despite his exile from the noble circle. Now when I say Bogeyman, I refer to the kind of person in the media that every adult speaks of in a daunting tone, teasing about what the children might experience, but whispering darker things to one another. For some people that might be an entire country. A stereotype is taught as well as an underlying caution. A caution that grows as age means more cognition as the stories and the gossip before complete understanding of the threat, and though mocking in private, always with an edge of paranoia that they should accidentally meet them. For the Veil, that figure has always been Taliesin Fillmore II, ever since he was old enough to make an impression upon the court as a flamboyant and disconcerting soul. Now, I'm not doing his profile here. In fact, we're going to be quite a short little piece, because what we're going to talk about is some of the reasons behind him being the most hated being in the Veil. The biggest problem with him is, of course, that he's developed a cult status in more recent years and become an icon for the rebel. He's not always considered as dangerous as he was. So we'll cover this in a brief little history, starting from the 1880s, when he was out and about causing trouble. Of course, before him, his own father was rumoured and yet not proven to have experimented upon all of his children in order to force the creation of a vampire king, as well as culling all of his hybrid children through affairs after those experiments also failed. But for Taliesin, this was his big moment of being a rake, a cad, and sadly, due to the time, his varied sexual activities were used as something against him, and he was titled a waste. Here's a quote from Foundations of Blood over him. That would be his heir, Taliesin the Younger, a shameful brat, but not one to get on the wrong side of. You don't want him to be inviting you to anything, because he is never interested in anything but himself, and there is no number of sins listed against his character, a nightmare for any father. Upon his meeting with Theodulus within the Foundations of Blood story, things take a turn with Taliesin's reputation, when they use their demonic sources and contacts to turn the tides on his father. It's no surprise to the Veil, of course, that Taliesin killed his father, but the fates of his younger siblings are questioned, and some of the worst sources of rumours. Rumours including that he let them become embodied by demons, kept them in a pit, going mad, and would push people he hated down to be devoured by them. Aside from this, there are two unconfirmed rumours that truly upset everyone that heard them. Firstly, that, due to the time period of course, he was indulging every sexual fetish he could have with many male and female mistresses about the Veil. But secondly, and perhaps the most unsettling, his father's body is pickled in his favourite alcohol, and that Taliesin drained his father's blood and lives from it. Such a thing would be against all thoughts of the vampire clan system, but also akin to cannibalism. During the 1920s, after Theodulus went to hell, Taliesin's sins were made more obvious. The pit rumour was revealed, but also stories of him kidnapping various different beings from the Veil to torture for fun, and only released should they give him something he needed. Lots of kidnappings in this period were being focused around him, and the noble court wanted nothing to do with him, so they and the Veil agents dealt with it. He was exiled from the noble circle, but before the Veil agents could find his siblings and the actual proof they needed in that period to hold on to such a powerful vampire, he moved away to an island out of Veil agent jurisdiction, and has remained on that cruddy island. During the 30s and 40s, the thoughts of Taliesin and the gossip was increased when the purists arrested the incarcerated Taliesin's most well-known male lover, the Herman von Nabelblick, in their hopes to eradicate wastes. Talk about Taliesin being a Krusnox, the demon vampire corruption that was well known to be removed from existence if found, was spread around. There has never been proof of this to the public, but alongside it came the accusations of intimacy with his demonically possessed siblings that really sickened people and encouraged the idea that wastes were much more uncouth than needed. These rumours would be the most lasting ones, but not the last, of course. In the 50s and 60s, his relationships with those within the Vale became an underground whisper that assassins were in his pocket and that he was going to wipe out the nobles completely. This seemed to feed into a disquieted youth that did not want to deal with the nobles, and the initial difficulty he'd had in travelling before was removed. Suddenly Taliesin would be more gregarious and dramatic when he would visit places. He became a celebrity that people flocked to be around, and this was when his position as a rebel to the old system that had broken him were built, though always in conflict with the Vampire King. During the 70s, the more hideous accusations of human trafficking as well as drug trafficking emerged, but also the rumours that his interests went to other illegal tastes. It was, however, still a time when he was very popular with the youth, and upon building a nightclub in the old theatre on Slater Island, it became the hub for illegal party drugs. In the 80s, it was also a prime place for activity with the alternative crowds, and the visit to Taliesin's club was a must-do for anyone who could get there. An idea of him as like a camp comic book villain emerged within his youth and remained through the 90s, and too, despite the fact rumours were flying about of him kidnapping women to turn them mad and watch them devour their families, or creating them mindless ghouls for the same. In the 2000s, though, the power of the nobles was practically forgotten, and Taliesin sat back into the Bogeyman role, just some character of the past that adults were all scared of that had no power, until he began to actually assassinate and blow up places. At this point, the non-noble youth were of the opinion that this was all it had ever been. The rumours were from the nobles, and the Bogeyman was only out for revenge and not about them. From this point on, everyone chose to believe that Taliesin was just the vampire's problem, but the truth is, he is and will be everyone's problem. To me, Taliesin was not supposed to be the huge villain he became, but as I was working to create the character for Changeling Heart, he kept stealing the show, and even when he's a background hazard in the Iron Wolf stories, he still steals it. When I write him, he's very easy to take over, but the big issue with Taliesin is that every rumour holds a grain of truth with Taliesin, and the truth's probably much more horrendous. Throughout the Viper Clan series, in fact, his madness starts to develop over the years, and some of his proudest deeds are revealed. There's a reason he should be considered more dangerous than the Vale, and well, I just wanted to mention it as references to him have been popping up lately in some of my works, and it's interesting to have this hideous creature that no one should ever pity. After all, I do have a fondness for creating the most hideous villains I can, when I allow them to be as ruthless as they really are, as in Changeling Heart. Anyway, thank you for listening. Bye.